Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live discussion of the Argentina national team, this time against Brazil. My name is Roy Nemmer of Mundo Albiceleste.com, and I am joined by none other than Osvaldo, also of Mundo Albiceleste.com. And we're going to talk Argentina versus Brazil, the qualifiers, the rumored 11, all that stuff, taking your comments. We are going to get to it all. So without further ado, Osvaldo, how are you? How's everything?
A pleasure to join you, Roy. I'm doing well, expecting tomorrow's game. After the loss against Uruguay, I lost that it was after a long time for Argentina. We kind of, or at least I kind of want the revenge as soon as possible. I want another important match, and now we're gonna play tomorrow against Brazil, and I'm excited for it. Hopefully, we'll see some changes that we're gonna talk about in the starting lineup. But for sure, excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big match. It's arguably probably the biggest match in all of South America alongside Argentina versus Uruguay. We're not alone as always, everybody. Let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We got George already. He's ready. He has the empanadas. He has the wine. Everything ready, all the way from the Bronx, New York tomorrow. So welcome everybody. And as always, let us know where you're from. We always get people worldwide. Rian, all the way. Good morning from Nepal. Wow, absolutely incredible. Thank you, Rian. Thank you, George. Everybody else. I see Sumaya in here who says, keen for tomorrow's game, but at the same time, a little bit tense. I get that. I get that. And we're going to go through all the emotions. So, yeah, Argentina lost their last match versus Uruguay, the 2-0 at La Bombonera. We did a video. We discussed it all. It's all there. And now, as you said, Osvaldo, it's just a couple of days later, and the team's eager. They're going to play. It's a big match. And we got some rumors about who could start, who could potentially not start, something we mentioned in the past. The latest rumor is that both Angel Di Maria and Lautaro Martinez would start over Nicolas Gonzalez and potentially, obviously, Julian Alvarez as well. Everybody in the chat, let us know what you think of it. And Osvaldo, well, what do you think of the potential changes?
Yeah, I think it's a good decision, both of them. Di Maria over Nico Gonzalez, I think it's a change that we would have expected, even more when Nico Gonzalez played the first four matches of these qualifiers with Argentina from the starting lineup, and he didn't really play that well. Yes, defensively he gave a little bit to the team, but that's really not enough when you have someone in the bench as Di Maria. Um, and yeah, Di Maria was the one that scored the goal against Brazil in the Maracana in 2021. So I believe that also can influence a little bit in the decision. And then Lautaro over Julian. Um, in that decision, I don't really know if there's a lot of difference between one player and the other. But Julian had his chance against Uruguay. In my opinion, he didn't play that well against Uruguay. He lost a couple of balls. I mean, the whole team didn't play that well in Uruguay. Has its merits, of course. But I think it's good that when you have two players in such a good level, maybe give one match to one, and if you see that maybe he didn't play that well then you can give it to Lautaro Martinez. That doesn't mean that now Lautaro Martinez will be the starting number 9 for Argentina from now on, because Scaloni also takes those decisions based on the opponent, and both players are in a great level.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to your comment a little bit about, Nicolas Gonzalez and Di Maria, I think he has to start Di Maria. I know, some people in the chat last time were saying, well, maybe, start Nicolas Gonzalez, the defensive effort, or, Di Maria off the bench and this and that. But we've seen the last couple of years, and maybe even a decade, really, if you want to go back over a decade, if you want to go back to the Olympics, Di Maria is the player for the big games. He's the player for the big finals. And this might not be a final, but this is certainly a big game. Argentina versus Brazil at the Maracana. It doesn't really get much bigger than that, aside from a World Cup or Copa America final. And Di Maria has done both, and Di Maria scored in the Copa America final versus Brazil at the Maracana, which is always good to say. But in this case, I think he has to start, and it's not as if I don't think Nicolas Gonzalez is playing, bad, but I don't think he's playing at his level. And against Brazil, you have to be at that level. So I'm completely on board with Di Maria playing and starting in place of Gonzalez. And the other one, Lautaro and Julian, you mentioned it. Not every team is lucky enough to have both strikers like that. They're both scoring for their clubs. Lautaro maybe in a little bit of a better form, but I have a feeling, and I haven't said this before, but I kind of have a feeling Lautaro gets his goal versus Brazil. Knock on wood. I know, but I really get the feeling. I think he has a point to prove, or he thinks he has a point to prove, and I think he's going to get his goal and prove it at the
Yeah,
Maracana.
yeah. Hopefully. I think that um, I remember when we played the final in 2021. A couple of hours before the final, we didn't know if Di Maria was going to start the game.
Yeah.
And if you ask most of the journalists, they would say that he wouldn't start. Nico Gonzalez would start in his place. And I remember at the last moment, Di Maria started in the lineup and he scored the winning goal. I don't think Scaloni would do something similar tomorrow and then starting Nico Gonzalez.
No.
No, but it's still a doubt. I mean, the rumors are that, yeah, Di Maria and Lautaro will start. Um, but I think that then maybe, Roy, what we can do is also, I have here the lineup against Brazil in 2021,
Yeah.
because something interesting that I think it's worth analyzing, it's where Di Maria will play in case he plays, because will it still be a 4-3-3 with Messi in the right side and Di Maria in the left side with Lautaro Martinez on top, or maybe more like a 4-4-2 and Di Maria as a right midfielder. So that would be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it'll be very interesting to see as well, which or how many players from that Copa America team are still in this team. I would think a big majority, maybe some of them no longer starters, but I think the big majority would still be in the team, and we'll definitely check that out as well. George says, a Clásico is a Clásico, of course, and absolutely agree. Mixed memorabilia, hello guys, and welcome everybody. So Mixed Memorabilia says Brazil will be a very tough match. They will want to bounce back versus Argentina, and Argentina will not want to lose two in a row. And that's an interesting one as well because Brazil has not won in a while. They lost versus Colombia. They lost versus Uruguay before that. Argentina, they got the loss versus Uruguay. It happens. We spoke about it, but something's gonna happen. Either Brazil goes 3 games without really winning, or knock on wood, Argentina goes, or something's bound to happen. Something's bound to give, and
Yeah.
hopefully, luck is on our side and everything's on our side.
Yeah. I remember one of the comments in the last live that was, I don't know who said it, but he was saying how maybe a tie would be good for both teams. I really don't see that much because Brazil really needs a win.
Yeah.
For his people, for the fans, for the journalists. Um, but it's also true that if they lose against Argentina, it would be even more catastrophic than what it's now. Right now they're in the 5th position, and when I lost, they can go back to the 6th or even 7th, depending on some results. Of course, Brazil will qualify eventually, but still, not only the results that you mentioned, how they haven't been able to win those many games in these qualifiers, but also the way they play collectively, they haven't played that well.
No, they really haven't, and it's very unlike Brazil. Yes, we jokingly, we make fun of them. It's just friendly stuff, but it's very unlike Brazil to go this long, without a win or without really playing well in general, and they are absolutely struggling, very, very much struggling. So they need a win. In regards to, would a draw favor both teams? I don't think so. Brazil are playing at home. The pressure is on them because they aren't playing well, and now they're hosting Argentina at the Maracana. They have to get the win. They absolutely have to get it. And despite Argentina losing the last match, I think there's still more pressure on Brazil to win than there is on Argentina. Not that there isn't on Argentina, but I think Brazil have a little bit more pressure on them because of their recent form and the fact that they are playing at home.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about more, about the history of Brazil in home matches in the qualifiers, how they haven't lost a single match, which is insane. When I heard about that just a couple of days ago, I really went to check that fact because I couldn't believe it. And yeah, it's in the betting apps. I think Brazil is more favorite to win than Argentina. I guess that just because of they're playing at home and because of that fact, that makes them more favorites. But I think collectively, Argentina is a better team.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that they're for the betters, they're or the bookers, sorry, Brazil are favorites to win. If they are, I mean, maybe I would think it's very little. I wouldn't think it's by much if they are favorites over Argentina. But the fact that, you mentioned they never lost at home in a World Cup qualifier, that is surprising. That is absolutely surprising because, there's some big games, and to never lose at home, I mean,
Yes.
credit to them.
At home, they played 64 games in the qualifiers. They won 51, and they tied 13 times without a single defeat.
Without a single defeat. That is something. That's an impressive record. That's an impressive record. I know Argentina haven't lost many times at home in the qualifiers.
Yeah.
But to never go but to go undefeated, it's something.
We talk about our qualifiers, the CONMEBOL qualifiers, as one of the hardest. I mean, we have teams like Argentina, of course, Uruguay. For me, surprising that we never beat Brazil, or Uruguay never beat Brazil in Brazil.
In Brazil. Again, and let's not forget the qualifiers, maybe for the younger viewers and maybe those that don't know, the qualifiers were structured a little bit differently, right? But back then, it wasn't all in one group. It was very different. And Brazil, I mean, let's not forget, Brazil in the 90s had a very good team. Brazil in the 2000s had a very good team. But there was always that thing of when Argentina would host Brazil in the qualifiers, Argentina would score 2-3 goals and they would win. And whenever Brazil would host Argentina in the qualifiers, it was the opposite. Brazil would score 2 or 3 goals and they would get the win. So there was always that weird type of result, so to speak, where just for whatever reason, Brazil was never able to win in Argentina and Argentina was never able to win in Brazil. But again, it's an impressive result when you truly, truly think about it, especially the history of World Cup qualifiers.
And it also gives a lot of merit to Argentina winning in the Maracana in 2021.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Or the Maracanazo in 1950 from Uruguay against Brazil, or even the 7-1 from Germany to Brazil, because those results are not common at all. I think Brazil, I'm not talking about friendly games. I'm talking about matches that counted for the standings or whatever. They have lost just a couple. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it will, and I mean, you mentioned those 3 results. Obviously, the Maracanazo, Uruguay. That was legendary, and people still talk about it to this day. The 7-1 defeat versus Germany, that hurts. I don't care what they say. I don't care if Germany went on to win the World Cup. That still hurts. 7-1, and the Copa America, I think, is in modern day. I think it hurts than the World Cup for them, just because it is modern. It's more recent. But yeah, those are 3 massive, massive results against Brazil in their history. AJ says, I think it's going to depend on which version of Argentina shows up. Look, I think we only really we saw a different version of them maybe against Uruguay, and credit to Uruguay, credit to what they did. But I think there's only one real version of Argentina. It's the one we've seen under Scaloni, the one that really knows how to play their game and take their game to the next level. So I'm not overly worried about that. And in regards really quickly to the qualifiers, Mixed Memorabilia says, there could be a debate that the South American World Cup qualifiers are more difficult than the actual Euros. And that would be a very interesting debate to have. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, for me to see these couple of days, the qualifiers of Europe, it was impossible. Like the matches where France won, I don't remember the score, 12-0 against
14-0 versus Gibraltar.
Yeah, I mean, you have those type of matches where Portugal won their Euros qualifiers. They won all the games. I think it was 10 games. So it's difficult to compare. And here you have Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, even Chile that won a couple of Copa Americas, Colombia, Ecuador, Quito, Bolivia, and La Paz. I mean,
it's never easy. It's really, really never easy at all. I think we kind of momentarily lost Osvaldo for a second, but Hippie J says Argentina will have to stay composed and not concede early. They should be fine. I think that's it. I think they have to kind of weather the storm. The first 15 minutes, I think you would have to think Brazil's really going to go out and really push for a goal early on Tuesday. And I think Argentina could maybe snatch a goal, get a goal early on, or not concede in the first 15 minutes. I think the pressure is just going to continue to mount on Brazil, and the opportunities will be there for Argentina.
For sure.
Sorry, go ahead, Osvaldo.
No, I was gonna change the subject just a little bit. That
Of course.
I remember I told you before that I have here the team that we started against Brazil in the
Copa America.
Maracana in 2021. You want me
Yeah.
to say it to remember?
Yeah, of course. Go for it, please.
Yeah, so it was Dibu Martinez, Gonzalo Montiel, Romero, Otamendi, Acuña, then Di Maria, De Paul, Paredes, Lo Celso, and on top Messi and Lautaro Martinez.
Oof. So I guess the only real big difference is if Tagliafico's sorry, who was left back? Tagliafico or Acuña?
Acuña.
Acuña. So a difference could be, or a change could be, maybe a Tagliafico for Acuña, maybe Molina starting in place of Montiel. Other than that, it's the same back line, Dibu. Midfield is probably the one where it's really going to be different, right? Because we've had Alexis Mac Allister and Enzo Fernandez come in. Although, and we're going to talk about this, we might see a change in midfield. And up front, I mean, if it's Lautaro, Messi, and Di Maria, then it's going to be the same attack as well. So not too much of a difference.
Yeah, not many difference. And then if you see Brazil, then we're gonna talk about the injuries that Brazil had in this last couple of months. You see a completely different team. You have Richarlison that now is injured, Neymar that now is injured, Casemiro that now is injured, Ederson that now is injured, Danilo that now is injured. Yeah, a lot of differences.
A lot of wow. We still have a lot of injuries too. I forgot it was that much. But yeah, for Argentina, maybe not too many changes, but for Brazil, it certainly looks like it. I see some comments. So, for example, Mr. J, welcome. Mr. J says, I think Acuna is best to come on the second half. I think that's probably what we're going to see. But we'll discuss a little bit, the 11 and everything. Mr. J says, I think the counterattack will be there for Argentina. Brazil must win. This need changes the players' approach. Certainly, it's a way of looking at it. Mixed Memorabilia says Argentina have reached a point where they need to take the first step of evolving. They need to be more clinical up front. I wholeheartedly agree. I think we've missed a couple of chances in recent games. Maybe not many versus Uruguay, but in general, we have let a couple of goals pass by for Argentina. And going on to A-Town says Lo Celso needs to start. And that brings us to another possible change, and this one in midfield. It's been reported that we could get a change in midfield. It's not just Di Maria up front or Lautaro up front, maybe in midfield. What do you think, and everybody as well, but what do you guys think could be the change, and what would you change in midfield? Would you go for Lo Celso, or would you go Paredes or somebody else?
Yeah, the rumor is that Paredes has a chance to start. He's been playing a lot in Roma, playing some matches better than others, but he played a lot. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. We're talking about also a player that played in that final in 2021, and the question is who comes out in that case. But if I don't think Lo Celso really has played much in Tottenham to be part of the starting lineup. So I think if there's a change, it would be Paredes or even Palacios. That you thought the other day that he played well in the couple of minutes that he played.
That's gonna be I would think maybe it's Paredes because he's he is playing well for Roma pretty often, and so he is in form and he does play well. There's never really been a match where you look at Paredes and you say, oh my God, he was really bad, for example. And him, I would be surprised if it is Palacios, just because Palacios hasn't really been in the starting 11 much, whether it's recently or the last year or 2 or 3. He's more of a substitute. So I would be surprised if it is Palacios. I would not be surprised if it is Paredes. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be Lo Celso. I don't think he's in great form. He doesn't play too much with Tottenham, although I think he played in the last match. But it's gonna have to be, I think, Paredes. The question for who, that's gonna be the thing, because do you play Paredes in place of Enzo? And I love Enzo, but recently he hasn't been at his level. And then that means Paredes plays as the number 5, as the defensive midfielder, and Alexis more up front. Or do you play Paredes in place of Lo Celso, in place of Mac Allister, and then it's him or Enzo that stay back? I'm gonna go. I think Enzo gets dropped. I think Paredes starts for in place of Enzo, and we get a midfield of De Paul, Enzo, and Mac Allister. But that's
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah, that could happen. Honestly, what I know for sure is that I don't like Mac Allister as the defensive midfielder. He's been playing there with Liverpool, with Argentina in the recent games. I personally don't like it that much. I don't know why Scaloni and Jurgen Klopp start him there. Of course, he's such a good player that he can play there. He can play and he does it decent. But I think that his best version is when he's a little bit more free and does not too many defensive tasks. Um, I don't think that they Scaloni like so much how he played, because after the first half he changed him. It's also true that he had a yellow card. But yeah, I personally don't like Mac Allister playing that. I also mentioned a couple of times already that Enzo Fernandez in the World Cup he played better in that position, and Mac Allister a little bit more free. But well, now I guess it also changed because of how they're playing the clubs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
No, definitely, definitely. And sorry, I think it's Nico or Nicholas. I'm sorry, I'm guessing that's Greek. That's in Greek. But person says Mac Allister is not a defensive midfielder. He's a center midfielder. No defensive tasks. Even in Liverpool, he plays in the wrong position. So similar comments to you, Osvaldo. It's it is that. They also say Paredes is the key for the security of the back line. And Matias, welcome, Matias. Matias says we need to go 4-4-2. Which could also be the case, right? You kind of mentioned this earlier as well. Maybe we get Di Maria playing on like right midfielder or left midfielder or something. We get Messi and Lautaro up front. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is Paredes. And I think everybody's saying here that maybe it does does look like it's going to be Paredes, or that's what they're talking about.
And those are
Go ahead.
the reports. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting that where Di Maria is gonna play in the 2021 Copa America. He played in the right side. There he scored the goal, and is where he best plays. Of course, Messi is also a little bit in that side. So you don't know where is he gonna play. But yeah, with these rumors of maybe another change in the midfield, we can imagine more like a 4-4-2 with Di Maria in that right side.
Yeah, I would think that we would probably get, something like that. I think he's going to want to control the midfield and try and control maybe whatever type of counterattack Brazil might have. There was a comment earlier I brought up that said, I think the person said it's going to be a physical match. I think it will be. It tends to always be against Brazil, whether it's the Copa America final or even the match in Argentina. I can't remember. I think it was in Mendoza or Cordoba or San Juan. I can't remember. But there was the other World Cup qualifier, but in Argentina that ended 0-0. That was a very physical match as well. So I think Paredes comes in. I truly think that's the change that we get in midfield. With that said, let's continue, because you mentioned the injuries for Brazil, and you went through them. You went through a lot of them, and they have a lot of depth. Brazil certainly have a lot of depth. For example, I said this last time. I thought I rate maybe Alisson higher than Ederson, right? That's me, for example. But do you see any big, like, out of the injuries that they have, do you see one that's like, okay, they're really going to miss that specific player, or do you think they have like a decent amount of depth where it's like, oh, okay, they're not bad? Like, obviously Neymar's a big miss, Vinicius, but in general, do you see one, or do you just think no matter what, they're just going to be hurt?
I mean, Brazil, they have great players, but the key players in their either in all their lines are injured. Neymar, Vinicius, those are the main two stars. But then in the midfield, how important has been Casemiro for Brazil, for Real Madrid, for all the teams that he played, and now he's injured. Maybe Danilo. Brazil has other right and left backs.
Other options,
other options. But also Richarlison. We're talking about players that have started in Brazil in the last couple of years. Maybe between Ederson and Alisson, there's not such a big difference. They both played in high teams, in top teams in the Premier League. But it's still difficult for them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think obviously missing any player is going to be tough, but the players that they have, specifically in attack, they still have very dangerous players. But Neymar, this has been his team for close to a decade now, at least on paper. Casemiro has that experience. He is a veteran, even though at times for Manchester United he doesn't play great, but he still adds something. And Vinicius has been doing well for both them and Madrid. And let's see. Mixed memorabilia says Brazil will defend and look to counter. Um, I could kind of see that, but at the same time, I think they're gonna go and just try and push from the very very start. So in a way, I don't see them sitting back too much unless they take a lead. If they take the lead, then maybe. But I think the first 15 minutes or so, they're really gonna push and they're gonna try and use the crowd to their advantage. I think that's gonna be a big big thing for them.
For sure. No, for sure. And they still have great players. I mean, Marquinhos, Rafinha, Bruno
Of course.
Guimaraes, Martinelli, Rodrigo, and even in the bench that maybe he will start now that Vinicius is injured. You have Hendrix that Real Madrid just bought him, only 17 years
Palmeiras.
old. Yeah. So yeah, of course, they are still very dangerous.
No, it is very very dangerous. There's been a name that's been kind of thrown around in the chat. I see it, and it's Dybala, Paulo Dybala, and I'm gonna throw the question to everybody. And I don't know if Scaloni would ever do it, and Osvaldo, I'll ask you, but in general, let's say knock on wood, but if Argentina for whatever reason somehow need a goal, do you see Dybala futuring at all, or do you think he just go with maybe a Nicolas Gonzalez or Julian Alvarez, or do you think there's a place maybe for Dybala on the team as a substitute?
First of all, I see Dybala for Scaloni as the replacement for Messi in case that he gets injured or whatever in the future. And I don't see him really playing along with Messi for Scaloni. But yeah, I mean, if we're losing tomorrow at some point, I think the first change is gonna be Julian Alvarez.
Yeah.
And probably the second can be Dybala. It's also true that it wouldn't make that much sense when you have Nico Gonzalez, who for Scaloni was so important and started the first 4 games, to put Dybala first and Nico Gonzalez. But I guess it will depend on how the match is going. But I think that after Julian, the next change in case that Argentina is losing in Brazil should be Dybala.
Yeah, I would, I do agree with that, and I agree with a lot of the comments in the chat as well. I think Dybala would only play if Messi, for whatever reason, is not there. I think Dybala is maybe a second or maybe even third choice, substitute. Like for example, if Nicolas Gonzalez was starting, I would say the substitute would be Di Maria, and then Julian, and then Dybala. In my opinion, especially if they need a goal. Matias says Thiago Almada. I would be surprised if he comes on as a substitute for Scaloni against Brazil, but he's certainly talented. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, it's a very interesting case when it comes to Dybala, just because of his age. He's not 20 years old anymore. He's not really that young. I'm not saying he's old, but he never really got going with the national team for whatever different reasons, and he is not the number one or even maybe number two choice substitute for Scaloni in Argentina.
Yeah. I believe that Thiago Almada is training now with the under 23 because he was not in the concentrated to the game with the game against Uruguay, and he scored a great free kick that day
versus Japan.
Yeah. But for sure, for the future, Thiago Almada will be called, and he was in the World Cup. If I'm not mistaken, he played a couple of minutes against Croatia.
He came on. Him, Juan Foyth, and I think Palacios were the three that came on.
Yeah.
Or three of the players that came on versus Croatia.
Yeah. With the game already 3-0.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. But yeah, I mean that's in regards to to Dybala. The question from Mixed Memorabilia says, why can't Messi and Dybala play together to create great football just like Riquelme and Messi did? It's a little bit of a different situation in my opinion, and I think we could do a separate video altogether, kind of just explaining that. Riquelme and Messi just had that that chemistry on the pitch, and Riquelme just a pure number 10, and Dybala and Messi just for whatever different reasons, we haven't really gotten the time to see him.
for sure.
Yeah. And looking at some other comments, Matias, I agree. Almada is a great one to come up. The next year or so, and I would say probably after the Copa America, it will be, and we use the word interesting a lot, but it will be interesting to see what Scaloni does moving forward, right? Because some of these players are getting older, and in all likelihood, after the Copa America, we're going to see some changes. But if Thiago Almada makes the jump over to Europe and plays well, who knows? We could find himself really fighting for a spot in, number one.
That's gonna be very important. He has to do the jump to Europe. I believe that even before the World Cup, the coaching staff from Argentina recommended Thiago Almada to make the jump to Europe, because we've seen him in the MLS, and he's been playing really well. The MLS is not good enough for Thiago Almada.
No, and that's not on. We're not trying to hate on the league or anything like that. But yeah, Almada now deserves to really go to Europe and prove his, show his worth. Sorry, so to speak, not prove his worth, but show his worth over in Europe. And one thing I want to talk about, just to kind of circle back and maybe discuss a little bit. The last time Argentina played Brazil, as we mentioned in the last video, the match kind of got suspended and stopped after about 5 minutes. The whole COVID, the protocol, and that was an embarrassment for Brazil, not necessarily for Argentina, but really for Brazil because of everything. But the last match in Brazil, which again, we all know was at the Maracana, was the 2021 Copa America. We had, what was it? I think 2,000 or 4,000 fans in total, something like that. I remember reading, and Osvaldo, I don't know if you saw it, but if I'm not mistaken, the Maracana is sold out for the match.
For tomorrow.
So that's.
I didn't see that. Yeah, it's not surprising. Of course, it's a match between two of the best national teams in the world, and of course, Brazilians are as Argentinians in that way that they love soccer more than anything, and they would pay whatever just to watch an Argentina against Brazil for sure.
Yeah, it's and then a lot of them. There are a lot of Brazil fans that are, I'm not going to say Argentina fans, but are fans of Messi. I'm not saying they would pick Messi over their national team, but there's been. I've seen some fans that have really been Brazil fans cheering Messi on. So hopefully we get a couple of them. I don't know. Hopefully we.
Yeah, I remember that. And also, was it in the Copa America when there was a Brazilian fan that got a tattoo of something with Messi? I remember that
I think so.
And then Messi signed him the back, and it was a Brazilian.
Yes.
It was a Brazilian fan.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if it was the Copa America or if it was the qualifier going to the Copa America. I'm not sure, but it could be the Copa America. It absolutely could be the Copa America, but I remember that.
Brazilians have something that I don't think it happens in the rest of the world, that they like soccer so much that they sometimes they don't care if they're Brazilians or Argentinians or whatever. Like, they love Messi as they could love Pelé, Ronaldinho, whoever. And they also, there's a lot of kids, well, that now might not be so young, that are called Riquelme, for example, because of Juan Román Riquelme. I think that's fascinating. It's fascinating how they put Riquelme as a name, which is not a name; it's a last name.
It's a surname. We've seen them at one point. There's a bunch of little like random statistics and stuff like that about that, and the amount of kids born called Riquelme. So there's a lot of love there. There's a lot of love, and at the end of the day, there's no real hatred between both countries. It's the rivalry and on the pitch. That's really it.
For sure. It's also true that because of the Libertadores final, I don't know how much you follow about it. Argentina against Boca against Fluminense. That was in the Maracana too, and the Argentina fans suffer a little bit of how the police is usually in Brazil. They're usually more violent than in maybe some other countries, and Argentinians say that they were not doing anything. I'm talking about the Boca fans, and then in the end they got some violence from the Brazilian police. Hopefully tomorrow nothing will happen. I don't think it will happen at all.
I don't think so.
But yeah, hopefully the rivalry is just on the field, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And for whatever reason, I mean, I say for whatever reason, we know why, but mixed memorabilia says it. Argentina versus Brazil is one of the greatest sporting events of all time. I don't expect any violence off the pitch. Not like what we saw, as you just mentioned. I think it's going to be a clean. It's going to be fun. No matter who wins, the fans, I think, are just going to have some fun. I don't think there's going to be much violence there. And I'm going to throw a question to you, Osvaldo, and I guess to everybody else. Out of the 11, right, the 11 that's being predicted, so Di Maria up front, Lautaro, Messi, maybe a change in midfield. Is there something that you in particular would change, or would you go with maybe what is being rumored?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I was telling you the other day how I know that almost all of these chat and Argentinian fans in general don't like Nico Gonzalez to start at this point.
Yeah.
I understand that. I know that Di Maria is in the bench and he deserves a chance because every time he played brilliantly, and with Benfica he's playing really good even after the World Cup. But I think Nicolás Gonzalez didn't reach his full potential in the national team. I saw him a lot with Fiorentina. I really follow him very much. Him along with Martinez that also plays there in Fiorentina, and he's been playing really well. He's the number 10 in Fiorentina. I believe he's the captain too, and he's very, very important. The last season, he was not able to win. I think it was the Supercoppa Italia against Inter. He scored one goal, and then Lautaro Martinez scored two or something like that. I remember, but I just think that he's such a great player, and he's very young. I don't know. I think he's 24?
24 or 26 for Nicolás Gonzalez. I think he's 24.
Gonzalez 25. Yeah.
25. Okay, no.
So, and I think that defensively he gives a lot to the team. Of course, maybe us as fans we always see what they give in attack, and more if there are forwards. Of course, we expect them to score. And in Fiorentina, he scored a lot. It's not that he doesn't score. It's not that he just runs. He scores, and he scores a lot.
Yeah.
So, I would like to see him maybe not from the start because he already had a lot of chances in these qualifiers, and I waited for him, and Scaloni waited for him. I don't know, he didn't really play well. But maybe in the second half, I would put him in, and even more if maybe we're winning by one goal, because he can give you so much in defense and then in counterattacks, and also in the air. I was mentioning the other day how the 2 goals from Colombia against Brazil came from Luis Diaz, who also plays like in Nico Gonzalez plays in that left wing, and with headers. So, and Nico Gonzalez jumps very well in the air, and he's very good in the air. So I want to see him at least a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to see him as well. I don't know if we will. Maybe, absolutely, maybe it could be a possibility. But I think kind of like what you said, I think a lot of fans are disappointed in him. I think he gets some undeserved criticism because I think a lot of what he does really goes unnoticed. I truly think so. I'm not saying he played well in particular versus Uruguay, but just in general, a lot of what he does goes unnoticed, I think, and people tend to highlight a lot of the chances that he misses, which, again, it's understandable. I get it, because as a striker, as a winger or forward, you expect it to score goals. But it's unfortunate because I think he is, he is a very good player, and I think he adds a lot to the team. But against Brazil, you have to start Di Maria. I truly think so.
Would he do any change in the defense, in the midfield?
Well, it's funny enough. There's some comments going on. I mean, Matias says, for example, we have players like Senesi, Quarta, Martinez. We need to see other center back pairings in regards to Nicolas Otamendi. I think right now you kind of have to stick with Otamendi and Cuti Romero. It's going to be a physical game, and I think those are the best two to have. But with time, slowly, sure. If Lisandro Martinez was healthy, maybe not. I'm not saying for this match, but maybe you could replace Otamendi and try out Lisandro, see how he does with Romero. But in general, I think it'll be good. It's going to be fun to see who we get between Tagliafico and Acuna, because Acuna did come on in the last match versus Uruguay, and Tagliafico's been playing a lot, and he's been playing very well. But I wouldn't make any changes to the back line. In midfield, maybe Paredes for Enzo, maybe. But I think Paredes has to start. It's just a matter of I don't know if it's going to be Enzo or Mac Allister. But in general, I'm happy with what is being rumored. Let's put it that way. I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
with.
Scaloni doesn't change that much usually from one game to another, and it would be a mistake if he changes all because of just one loss
No,
against a good team as you.
yeah, and he said it. The translation is up on Mundo Albiceleste.com for those that maybe missed it. But Scaloni said yes, there's going to be changes, but in short, he said that the changes are going to happen not because one person played well or one person played bad versus Uruguay. Like it's not a matter of just because of the one thing. It's overall who's been playing well, who hasn't kind of been playing well overall, and in particular the match against Brazil, how they line up. So whoever gets dropped from the starting 11, it's not because of they played bad, let's say versus Uruguay. I don't think it's that. I don't think
Yeah.
it's that. But yeah, someone's asking for the time, what time the game is at. Well, the game is at, I mean, it's 7 p.m. Eastern. I guess it depends on the time zone, what time. But guys, you can always check out mundoalbiceleste.com. Check it out. We have the time zones on there. And obviously hit the like button, guys. Subscribe. We got another chat coming up, right, Osvaldo, after the game tomorrow?
Yes, that's true.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, after a good result.
Hopefully, yeah, we'll be celebrating. It's going to be a very good result, I don't doubt. And I'm going to say this, and Osvaldo, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask everybody. I remember at the start of the qualifiers, we were kind of talking about how there are, 6 teams essentially out of South America that are going to qualify for the World Cup, and it's not really a doubt for Argentina that they're going to qualify, but it was more a matter of how excited do you get, during these qualifiers, and we said we still get excited. These last 2 matches, the one versus Uruguay and this one coming up against Brazil, I am very, very excited for. Maybe it's the opponents, maybe it's the venue. I don't know, or maybe it's the fact as well Argentina won't play until February or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm very excited to watch this team play.
No, for sure. Playing against Uruguay in La Bombonera and then against Brazil in the Maracana, it's I mean the 2 best matches in South America, I would say. Of course, with all the respect to the other national teams. But yeah, it's true. Like after the World Cup, there was a feeling of, okay, we just won the World Cup. Let's play against these teams, and yeah, let's see our World Cup champion team.
Yeah.
And now, yeah, now that we lost against Uruguay, we wanna go to Brazil and win, and you feel that excitement before the games. That is not that we didn't feel it in the first couple of games, but yeah, it was against teams that you usually win against them. So for sure, it's different.
Yeah. No, exactly. It is, and I guess maybe also because of the loss versus Uruguay, it's like you're extra kind of excited for the match against Brazil because that they're gonna step up. They have to step it up. Mix Memorabilia says Argentina have to show character. That's never been in doubt. Very fully agree with this, and I think they will show character. I truly think they're gonna show character. There was, I don't know if you saw it, Osvaldo. I don't know if you guys saw it, but after the match versus Uruguay. You know how they asked Messi after the match versus Saudi Arabia, kind of like, do you have a message for the fans? And Messi, said to everybody, just, confide in us, like believe in us. So someone asked Messi after the match versus Uruguay, like, do you have a message for the fans? And Messi said, it's one match. We just lost one match. Like it's nothing. It's what I mean. But you saw that. It's one of those things. Like it was funny to see, and that's when you know that the team is relaxed, even though they lost and they lost at home versus Uruguay. You know that they're relaxed.
Yeah.
The characters there.
Yeah, and it was accurate because it was only one match against a great team as Uruguay. Now it's another good team, and I guess that players, even more than fans, are used to playing every now and then, every couple of days, and winning, losing, tying, winning, losing again. So they already know this, how it works basically. And of course they want to win, but when they lose, even at home against Uruguay the other day, even the Paul after the game when he was asked about the things that happen in the game with
On
the
the
other,
pitch.
with I think it was Oliveira or Ugarte. He didn't um, try to generate any violence or whatever. He said that, oh, that stays in the field, and I
Yeah.
think that they know. Yeah, after the game, of course, they're a little bit angry because of the result and stuff. But then it's just a couple of minutes until they understand that we're still the World Cup champions. We're still first in the qualifiers. We still have a great team. We have a great future. We're playing well. We're playing really great. And yeah, they I think your way outplay us. But in general terms, we have everything to think positively.
Oh, of course, and I couldn't have said it, better myself as well. You're exactly spot on. And that was very mature by by DePaul. I'm not surprised by by his answer. It was a very mature answer, but it was a good way of putting it. It's hey, it happened. It was on the pitch, stayed on the pitch, and that's it. We're just gonna forget about it, and we're gonna look towards the next match for Argentina, which is against Brazil, tomorrow. On that note, Osvaldo, any final thoughts, or you're just excited for tomorrow?
Yeah, no, the only thing that I wanted to add is that
Yeah,
even though if you go to the betting apps, you'll see that Brazil is kind of the favorite. I think that based of what I just said, Argentina is clearly the favorite because we won the World Cup. After World Cup, we still played very well. Brazil has a lot of injuries, big injuries in every single line.
yeah,
So I think that we're the clear favorites. I would say, of course, yeah. They have the history. The Brazil never lost at home. Um, but it's also true that the players that played today were not the ones that played in all those other matches. So I
right.
think that Argentina tomorrow is the favorite against Brazil.
Yeah, I would say they're a slight favorite for sure. I would say they are the absolute slight favorite. This reminds me. I don't know how many kind of maybe remember this or not remember this. This reminds me back during the 2010 World Cup qualifiers where Argentina were hosting Brazil in Rosario, and I remember Maradona for whatever reason didn't want the match played at Monumental, something like that, and the match was ultimately played in Rosario, and Argentina were not playing well. Like they were not winning. Nothing was going their way, and Brazil was just on a high, and Brazil was dominating all of South America, and they were really going to the World Cup as one of the favorites for sure. And that match happened, and as an Argentina fan, you think, no, Argentina's going to win. They're not going to lose at home versus Brazil. They might drop. They're not going to lose. Brazil just it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And knock on wood, I'm not going to say that's what's going to happen tomorrow, but I see some similarities between the two. Us back in 2008 or 2009 at the time, and 2009, and this Brazil team right now. They need a win. They absolutely need a win. On that note, Osvaldo, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for joining us. We are going to be live again tomorrow after the match, after Argentina versus Brazil. Join us live here on YouTube. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. You don't want to miss it. Trust me. We're going to be here. We're going to talk about it all. It's going to be a big match, the biggest match in South America. Argentina versus Brazil at the Maracana, the World Cup qualifiers. We're going to talk all about it tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, once more. My name is Roy Nemmer of Mundo Albiceleste.com, joined by Osvaldo. Thank you, everybody, and take care. Bye, guys.